Hi everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about a new product. It is the DJI Goggles INTEGRA. This is a newer version of the goggles. Previous to this, it was the Goggles 2. And the primary focus of this video is going to be to look at the features and comparisons between the INTEGRA and the Goggles 2. I have currently the Goggles 2 and I decided to go ahead and buy the INTEGRA mainly for some key differences, and I'll kind of cover that. I'll do a quick box opening first, kind of go through what's in there and kind of cover things there as well. So let's go ahead and open the box and see what's in it. So in the box, right off, you've got the goggles, which is kind of nice. There is a box in here with some accessories. We'll kind of cover a little bit about that. Oh, it's a bit of a challenge here. It is kind of on there. So let's go ahead and pull this stuff out and kind of go through it. Little silica there. By the way, in the box there is a scan code here that you can look at to get some information on the DJI Fly app. Plus there's ways on going in and setting up some additional items like the diopter lenses and prescription lenses, as well as a few other things. And we'll kind of cover that real quick. So we're done with that. So before I get into the goggles themselves, let's go ahead and cover what these accessories are. Of course, you get the manuals that you have available. In this little bag, we've got some items here. Let's go ahead and open this as well. Okay. So we'll kind of cover things here real quick. First thing right off the bat, you have a headband strap here that I'll kind of cover a little bit more. It is what goes over the goggles, and we'll kind of cover that here in a little bit. You also have included is what they call a USB-C to OTG cable. Now, the reason for this cable essentially is so that you can use your iPhone cable, plug it into this, and actually do firmware updates for the Goggles INTEGRA here. So that's the reason behind this. What I don't see in the box is a USB-C to USB-C charging cable. I wish it did have that, but I don't know why they didn't include that on this guy, but I think that would have been something nice to have. You also have a little cleaning cloth. I'm guessing this is for the diopter lenses that come in with it. Here is also included are some frames. This is a pair of frames that you will use for either prescription lenses, or what's included here now is these diopter lenses. There's a total of 11 pairs of diopter lenses, and we'll kind of cover a little bit more on this and why this is now included in there. So these are your diopter lenses, and that's it. So we'll go through that. I don't know that I'm fond with the fact that it comes in a regular paper box. I would have thought that they would have included some kind of nicer box, maybe a plastic box, as opposed to just a simple cardboard box for the diopter lenses. I guess they're assuming, DJI is assuming that, you know, hey, you'll put a pair in there and the other stuff will just go away. But even then, I think it would have been nicer to have a better box than that. Again, these are for your prescription lenses, and we'll kind of cover a little bit more about that. So looking at this here, let me bring in my other goggles. These are my Goggles 2, not the version 2, but Goggles 2. Let's undo these little straps here, put this together so that we can see what the differences are between these two guys. Let me turn this around. So they physically look pretty similar as far as size. Everything looks the same. Nothing really different there. One thing to note on the differences between the two is the price. So if you're going in to go buy the Integra by itself, not part of a bundle, you're looking at a retail price of $499. The Goggles 2 actually costs way more. It's actually about $649. Comes with one battery as well. This one has it integrated. So that's something to note about the pricing. It is definitely a little bit different. And now we're going to go through some other features about it. Now the padding here on these two, it looks pretty much the same. You've got the same foam padding that you would normally have with these goggles. This one does have a little seam here that's kind of a sealed seam, a little bit kind of not sharp, but it does feel a bit rigid, versus the Goggles 2 tends to be more smooth and rounded. So there's definitely a difference there. As far as shape and everything, it looks the same. Might be a little bit tighter on the nose part of it, but it's pretty close to the same. So that's what we're looking at there. The one thing that does stand out on the Integra, by the way, move this aside for now. The one thing that's kind of cool about the Integra is the fact that you have an integrated battery with the goggles themselves, which is kind of cool. I do like that part of it. On the right side here, the actual power cord that goes to the goggles is actually running through the right side head strap here. And on the left side, you notice here, it actually allows you to, it kind of has a little hook clip here that you can take it off if you're wanting to put it around your head, or just plainly just leave it there as is. Now on the battery itself, I do like the fact that there is a little knob here. And if you, I don't know if you can hear it, but it does have a clicking sound, which is kind of cool because that's kind of letting you know if it's tightening or not. There is markings here to indicate if you rotate clockwise, it's going to tighten, whereas you go counterclockwise, it's going to loosen it up a bit. So I kind of like that feature for this type of headband, because sometimes you do need to make an adjustment to kind of get it to fit just right. So I do like that. So that's kind of cool on that. The other thing too, I noticed, if you look here, it does have some foam padding on the back of the battery, which is kind of cool. Remove battery use. So it does have a little film here, kind of take that off. But I do like the fact that it is pretty soft actually. Compared to the foam on the goggles themselves, this padding on the back seems to be a bit softer, and it does seem to be a bit more grippier. So that's kind of cool. And if you notice here, there's some loops here. There's a loop here and a loop right here. And that's actually for the headband that we were looking at earlier that comes with it, so that you can actually install that and kind of wrap it around and have it as additional support for the goggles if you want. I'm not going to put that all the way, but that's what this is intended for. This is the, again, the headband that's included for that. I'm going to try it without, see how it works, and at least I know I've got that for additional use. Now let's start with the differences here between the two goggles. Again, this being the Integra and this being the Goggles 2. They both have pretty much similar antennas. Now there are some differences on these antennas. They do both fold down and fold up, no problems, same on both. The one difference here is on the Goggles 2, if you look here, these do come off, which is kind of nice if you're wanting to do upgrades. That is definitely a plus on the Goggles 2, is being able to do that on the antenna part as well. And if I can get that back the way it was, there we go. So if you look at the Integra goggles, you cannot take these off at all. So they're actually kind of locked in. Now the cool thing about this, if you look carefully here and get my focus there, there's a little rubber bumper on the inside of the antenna, which kind of helps when you're folding them down. They're not going to bang against the outer housing of the goggles. On the Goggles 2, they're pretty much just plain. There's nothing there, no bumpers of any kind. So there's one difference there for this guy here. Now, one thing to note too on my battery, I did a kind of a workaround. I found a third-party product on the Goggles 2. This is a battery holder that locks into the strap, the headband, and comes with a short power cord that replaces the longer one that comes with the Goggles 2. So I was kind of doing what the INTEGRA does pretty much with a built-in battery, but or integrated battery. But that's just a workaround. Does not come with the Goggles 2. Again, I had to get that from a third party. I'll put a link on the description so you guys can go ahead and look at that if you still have the Goggles 2 and you're still staying with the Goggles 2. Let's cover some more features of the INTEGRA. Another thing to note here that is different, on the INTEGRA, you have what they call a 5D button, kind of like a finger joystick essentially, but it is a 5D button with a back button here. And what this is for is so that you can maneuver through the menuing system in the goggles. This kind of is a new feature that's in the INTEGRA that the Goggles 2 does not have. On the Goggles 2, what you have is a touchpad here that essentially does what the back button and the 5D button does on the INTEGRA. So Goggles 2 is a touchpad. Now, I think it's pretty cool design being a touchpad and all. For me, it was an issue because I caught myself accidentally clicking the menu or bringing up the menu because I would accidentally touch the touchpad. So for me, it wasn't ideal because again, I kind of wasn't very accurate while wearing the goggles, and I'd end up pulling the menu because of that. So I kind of really like this new feature on the INTEGRA in that, again, it's a 5D button with a back button. I think that's going to be a lot better. Now what they did is they went ahead and replaced that touchpad with the little LED indicator. It's just essentially like the typical battery LED indicator. You've got where and I got to get this connected, get it charged, but you would push the back button and it kind of brings up the lights there on the LED indicator. Normally the LED indicator for the Goggles 2 is actually on the battery itself. That's a removable battery. So that's one difference there on this new INTEGRA goggles. The other differences here is on the left side here, there's nothing here. Whereas on the Goggles 2, they have essentially a LED array that pretty much shows what channel number you're on. And I guess that's kind of good for in some cases where you've got other folks next to you and you're trying to show what channel you are on. And I guess that's helpful in those kinds of situations. In my case, I really haven't had a use for that. Although if you have a need for that, the Goggles 2 does that. In the INTEGRA, you do not have that option. Now for power, or I should say inputs, essentially for charging and for updating the firmware on these goggles, the INTEGRA goggles, you do have a USB-C connector right here that you can use. And also here, you also have the power button that you can press here as well. So you have that option there as a power button. On this here, on the Goggles 2, on this side, you do have the USB-C connector here along with the power plug right here on this side. As far as powering this up, you're actually powering it from the battery itself is where you would find the power button here on the Goggles 2. So that's one difference there between the two guys here. On the right side of the Goggles 2, and here's the INTEGRA as well. For the INTEGRA, you've got nothing here as far as micro SD card or like the phone jack that you have in the Goggles 2. Goggles 2 here has, again, the micro SD card here on well, it's actually the left if you turn it around, but on this side, definitely the micro SD card option is here, or the micro SD slot is here along with the RCA jack for headphones, although I've never really used the headphones, but that option is there. It is not available on the INTEGRA. As far as the micro SD slot, it's actually now located inside the headset between the two lenses here. So there's your micro SD slot. Kind of an interesting place to put it. I don't know why it got moved. I kind of liked it there on the outside, but there probably was a reason for that, but definitely that is something that is different between the two. Either way, it's not bad. Now let's talk about at the bottom here, we have the pupillary distance adjusters here. On the INTEGRA now, what they did is they essentially changed it. For the Goggles 2, on the pupillary distance, you were able to essentially rotate these to unlock them and then kind of move them to change the pupillary distance between the two lenses. And yeah, they kind of stuck out, but they're multi-purpose, so we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. On this new pair, and we'll take these off as well. Oh, one thing to note, the one thing you have to be careful on these lenses and is that when you're in the strong sunlight, you don't want the strong sunlight to hit these lenses because it can cause damage to your goggles. So I would be cautious of that. It's the same for the goggles too. You just kind of have to be mindful not to leave these out in the sun facing up towards the sun. So on the pupillary distance adjustments, I do like the fact that they're a little lever or kind of a slider button, and they do have kind of a clicking sound as they move. I don't know that it's super great. It's not bad. I'll have to try them out. What I do see is that I don't see how to lock it in place. So as you move these, I don't think there's a way to lock them. I'll have to try that a little bit more, but I don't think it does. So that's something that is different here compared to the Goggles 2, where you can actually twist and lock it in place. So definitely I do see that that is different. Another thing too here, you don't have the diopter adjustment like you did in the Goggles 2. Here in the Goggles 2, you can adjust the diopter settings as noted right here. So if you turn it here, you can adjust it to positive or negative diopter ranges. So I kind of like that. And the good thing about that is that you can tweak it to fit your needs specifically. So I think that's kind of good. It's a bit more different now with the INTEGRA goggles. Now you don't have that ability. You're going to have to go ahead and put in these here. So now you've got the diopter lenses that, or they call them corrective lenses, that you have to go in and put in there. And to me, that's kind of a hassle, but I guess it's a one-time thing. Once you set it to your eyes, it's no big deal. You set it, you're all done, you're ready to go. But I kind of wish that they were like the old Goggles 2 or the previous Goggles 2, in that you could adjust that with a knob and get it the way you want. But again, I guess they assume it's a one-time thing. Once you set it for your eyes, that's pretty much it. On the prescription lenses is a different story. I mean, once you've got it, it's tailored to your eyes. I've got astigmatism, so I have to pretty much use prescription lenses. There's a company called HONSVR. I purchased the prescription lenses from them. So that I'll talk about that in a video later on. The key differences here overall between the two goggles are pretty much the built-in battery. I kind of like the built-in battery. I think I'm going to lean to using more and more these because of the built-in battery. That's a big plus for me. Again, with the goggles, the INTEGRA, the thing to note here that I do like, it does have a larger capacity battery. It is a 2,450 milliamp hour battery, It does give me more power versus what the Goggles 2 has. These batteries are 1800 milliamp hours, so they're a little bit, they're less capacity, but you do have the plus being that I can change the battery, and that pretty much takes care of it. So it's a little give and take. I kind of still like the integrated battery, and I like the fact that it is a larger capacity battery, so that's a good thing. On the Goggles 2, again, you do have the touchpad, but I do like the 5D button. I think that works better for me. Although the touchpad might work better for others, I do like the fact that, you know, on this one, I've got that 5D button. It's going to be a little bit easier and less likely for me to make a mistake tapping on that while I'm flying. The other thing to note on the Goggles 2, you have the adjustable diopters. That's a big plus. I wish they would have done that with the INTEGRA. Unfortunately, on that one, you're forced to having to pick the ones that work for you, and you're pretty much set for that unless you want to spend the time to go ahead and change those out. Now, like me, I've got astigmatism, so I'm kind of pretty much having to go with the prescription lenses, so it's not that I'm going to be using the other diopters, but sometimes even tweaking one eye a little bit does help a little bit, although they recommend that if you get the prescription lenses that you put them in there in the correct orientation and pretty much leave it like that. And another thing to note that we've already discussed here is that on the antennas, I do like the fact that you've got the little bumper under that. That is a big plus. A negative, of course, if you do need to remove the antennas, let me switch this back up. If you do have to remove the antennas here, the Goggles 2 gives you that option. You do not have that with the INTEGRA. In my case, it's not a big deal because I don't change out the antennas. I'm using what comes with it, and that's it pretty much. As far as weight between the two, you're looking at the Goggles 2 coming at around 290 grams, whereas the INTEGRA is at about 410 grams, a bit more, but keep in mind you do have an integrated battery, so that kind of adds a bit to the weight. As far as the screens between the two, there is a difference between the screens. On the Goggles 2, you have that at a screen size of 0.49 inches with a 1080p at 100 hertz, and the field of view on the Goggles 2 is 51 degrees, whereas on the INTEGRA the screen size on that is a 0.49 inch with a 1080p at 100 hertz with a field of view of 44 degrees. So there's definitely a difference on the field of view. What is different about the two, 51 degree versus 44? Well, on the Goggles 2 at 51 degrees, you've got a more immersive view because it is giving you more to view overall. So if you like that immersive feel, then the Goggles 2 is going to give you that versus the INTEGRA. The INTEGRA is a little bit tighter field of view in comparison. I kind of like that tighter because already on my Goggles 2, I've been at about 90% of that 51 degree field of view because you can adjust it, and I did adjust that. So I think in my case, it shouldn't be bad. I'll know more as I start using the INTEGRA more and more. Another thing to note on both, they're both micro OLED screens, so pretty much the same. The key thing that encouraged me to spend the money to buy the INTEGRA was the fact that on the INTEGRA, you have the GPS built in, which means that I don't have to connect my phone and I don't have to connect batteries. If I had to connect my phones, I have to get these wires. If I were not using the third-party option for the battery clip on the headband, I'd be using these cables. So you can see all the wires you're having to take with you and dangle with you, whereas on the Goggles INTEGRA, I'm pretty much all there. GPS is built in. I don't have to worry about the remote ID error issue, whereas on over here I got to connect my phone with the phone so I can get to the DJI Fly app and get that remote ID error to go away, and then I got to undo it, or I just keep it connected. So I'm having to deal with all that, and that's kind of a pain for me on that. So that's definitely something that I'm glad that I don't have to deal with. So that was the big seller for me, the capability where the remote ID is already taken care of because of the built-in GPS on the INTEGRA goggles. So that was my selling point. As much as it is expensive, I kind of like this option way better. I think I'm gonna enjoy it better because, again, I just like to put them on and actually fly. Another thing to note that it wasn't a selling point for me, but I was kind of surprised, and it's kind of I kind of almost missed this. On the INTEGRA, you don't have certain things. There were certain things that were missing out of the box that I think they should have included. And that was the lens cover, for example. I've got this lens cover here for these here. I also have the option of buying a third party, which is kind of nice. This is a StartRC product. I'll put a link on there, but this is for the goggles too. And I think I can make that work here. Yeah, I think I'll probably use them here on the INTEGRA goggles. They did not include this lens cover. This is key because it keeps the dust from your lenses. It keeps the lenses from getting damaged, and it keeps them getting damaged from the sun if you had them out there like this. So that's something that comes with the goggles too, but they did not come with the INTEGRA. But I'm noticing that my StartRC lens cover that comes in this guy works with this one, so I'll probably be using that. I definitely like that. So I'll put a link on the description for this here because, again, it did not include that. I hope this helps you guys kind of get an idea of the differences, and maybe if you were thinking about, well, should I buy the INTEGRA, or do I just kind of keep dealing with the goggles too and just deal with the remote ID the way I normally would, which is just connect the phone and disconnect. So I hope this video kind of helps you get ideas. Is it worth buying? Is one better than the other? Well, the reality is they're both pretty good. Some have better features. The other one has other better features than the other. So there are little differences between the two, but overall they're great lenses, great goggles, and I think DJI hit a great job with this. In my case, like I said, this really fits my requirements. Again, the key requirement being I want everything ready to go, no issues, connect it, go fly, have fun. So anyways, thanks guys for watching this video. Please make sure to click on the like for this video, and also please subscribe if you haven't. For those who have, I appreciate you guys subscribing. It definitely helps me with my stats, and it does help with me going forward and doing more videos for you. And again, have a good day.